Hello there, right here. We just got the first experimental snapshot for 1.18. This is Caves and Cliffs Update Part 2. It is an experimental snapshot, meaning that to get it, you have to download it from their website. I'll have that link down below. And they made this so that they can start getting feedback on what people think about some of the major changes that they had to do in order to pull this off. In this video, we'll be looking at all the different changes and what this means for survival players. And make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, as over 60% of you guys haven't already. And while you're at it, hit the bell, as we are so close to 300,000 subscribers. And thanks to everybody who has already done that. So the first thing that makes it different from 1.17 is that they came back in and increased the world height, as well as made the world deeper. So now the world goes up to Y level 320, and it goes all the way down underground, where it goes into the negatives, maxing out at Y level negative 64. This means we got a bunch of new stuff underground, as well as the new mountains above ground. Now the new mountains aren't just called mountains. There's actually 5 different types of them, and they're different pieces of the mountain. If we're at the very top of the mountain, we can see we got a biome called snow-capped peaks. If we're kind of on the side of a mountain, the biome is called snowy slopes. If we're in these areas where there's a bunch of trees, it's called grove, like tree grove. And when the area comes to a peak, there is another biome which is called lofty peaks. And the 5th new biome is called meadows, which is kind of higher elevation meadow-like areas. But you might have noticed the really big change is actually not just the new biomes, but the way that new biomes occur. They've actually split biomes and terrain into 2 different groups now. Now before we would see like birch tree forests, and then we see birch tree forests that are hills, or birch tree forests that are mountains. But now they remove like the hill as well as the mountain biomes, and they split that over into a new category which has to do with the actual terrain of the ground. So as the ground goes up, we'll still be able to get like birch forest on that, but it won't have to be a completely new biome. It'll still be called a birch forest. So we're not losing any of the cool variety of biomes. They're just not organized as individual biome names on their own. The biomes is just going to illustrate the main vegetation which is in that area, where the terrain is going to decide how high up it is. Now some biomes can't be in some terrain, so like if the terrain gets really high and steep, something like a swamp biome won't be able to generate on top of that. But most biomes will be able to go in any type of terrain, so you'll still get the rare chances of finding like a jungle mountain. But this actually allows us to get more variation in terrain than we've seen before, as pretty much anything can be turned into a mountain or a hill, or it could just turn into like big drop-offs. And the transitions between biomes is going to be more smooth. As you can see, like it goes flat and then slowly increases and goes all the way up into a mountain, giving us a lot more interesting features to look at. Now this is an experimental snapshot, so they could change as well as remove some things that we see. And on these new mountains, we can find some of the new blocks like the powder snow block being used in the generation, making it a lot easier to find this in survival. Now the normal extreme hills will still be in the game. They're also known as mountains. Now also in this experimental snapshot, we do have the deep caves. This includes the old carver caves, which are ones that we are used to from prior versions. But there's also the noise caves, which are kind of sporadic. And they come in 3 variations. The cheese caves, which are kind of big and holy. The cheese caves also allow for these pillars to form, which make for cool looking caves. The spaghetti caves, which kind of string all over the place. And the noodle caves, which are really thin and can even break up so you can't find the rest of the cave. And with the world being 64 blocks deeper, there is much more of them, and they fill up the area quite well. With so much variety of the caves, they also end up popping out of the ground, giving really cool entrances to the start of them on the surface. Like this one here goes straight down from a mountain and goes into a massive caves that go all the way down into the depths of the world. We also have underwater aquifers, which are big, huge chunks of caves which are completely filled in with water, but are based on the groundwater level, meaning they have surfaces which have air exposed. And different areas have different levels. And these aquifers can appear connected with the surface water, so by going in them you can actually find caves that can take you all the way down deep into the ground. Now besides aquifers full of water, there's also aquifers at the very bottom of the world which are full of lava. And some of these lava aquifers are really massive and just solid lava. Also in this snapshot, we get to see the consistent deep slate below Y level 0. So above Y level 0, we have typically stone, and below Y level 0, it becomes mostly deep slate. This is the prominent block instead of having stone down here. And you can occasionally find tough block patches within it. Now we also got the new underground biomes. Here's the lush caves where we have moss, glowberries, the new blossoms, and they also contain a lot of clay with drip leaves and azaleas. So far it doesn't seem like there's any azalea trees above them to indicate where they are down below, but this will probably come with time. These biomes bring a lot of life to the caves once you find them. They also added in the dripstone caves. These consist of the new dripstone, the dripstone blocks, and the stalagmites and stalactites, as well as these really massive ones. And these are actually new biomes, which you can find using the biome search command. And if you stand in them, they show up as being a new biome in the F3 screen. So biomes are no longer the same as you go up and down, but can be different depending on what Y level you are. As if I go above where the dripstone is, you can see now we are in a forest. This is something they added many versions back, but they actually never really used it until now. This could mean that we can get unique mobs to spawn in these unique biomes under the ground. Speaking under the ground, they haven't added in the deep dark biome, and this is supposed to be the area where we can find the warden mob, but it will probably eventually be added in before the full release of 1.18. Now the dripstone caves and the lush caves can generate at pretty much any Y level underground, but they are testing with different options, so this may change in the future. Now in this version, we also see the distribution of the ores like we did in early 1.17 snapshots. So in this image that they provided, we can see currently how it is. The main reason why they're changing this from like 1.16 or 1.17 is to add more strategy when mining for specific ores. There's no one area where you can mine in order to get all the ores. You're going to have to kind of choose what you're trying to go for and hit those thick areas if you want that type. So diamonds is actually the best way down at the very bottom, just above the bedrock. And stuff like emerald doesn't even go down into the deep slate variation, meaning that we might not see deep slate variations of emerald ore in 1.18. But it's very likely that they'll change this once they realize this is a discontinued item for survival players. There's also some interesting stuff like the very top of mountains can actually have high amounts of iron and emerald ore. And you can compare this to the 1.17 where all ores could be found at the very lowest part of the world, as well as deep slate variations of all of them. Now they also reintroduced the large copper ore veins. These are mostly hidden in the walls, but you can see them on the edge of caves, and once you get on their track, you can follow them and collect tons of copper ore. They're also mixed in with granite, so keep your eyes out for this when you're mining. Now there's also large iron ore veins, which appear at the bottom part of the world, and these are mixed in with tough blocks. And notice that the copper ore vein comes with the copper raw blocks and the iron ore vein of raw iron ore blocks. The next change that they did is probably one of the biggest as it affects old as well as new worlds. And this is that hostile mobs will no longer spawn unless it is completely dark. So if I remove my night vision, you can see that something like the glow lichen over here produces a little bit of light. And it actually produces light level 7. Now before 7 and lower was just fine to let mobs spawn there, but now they cannot. So there's a big area right around here. No hostile mobs will be able to spawn. So if we go all the way out to here, mobs still couldn't spawn. And only if we go out to this block would it be possible for one to spawn in. So this change alone actually makes a lot of spawning spaces invalid now in a natural cave where they have lichen, or even in areas with other types of light. So here we have some lava. Lava reaches pretty far. Other natural lights include amethyst and glowberries, which appear in the lush caves. Now what this means for artificial light, like placing in torches, is that it's going to prevent spawning from the hostile mobs in a much larger area. Now this is most likely due to the developers talking about making it easier for players to spawn-proof caves, since now that there is a lot more caves, it's going to be harder to place down light to prevent mobs from spawning in. Now they thought about doing stuff like having the player be able to shoot torches out and make it land in different areas, but ultimately they're looking for a Minecraft way of doing this. So by having torches prevent mob spawns at a greater distance will help resolve this problem. As like right here we see a ledge, so if the player was like here, maybe he just kind of jumped up and placed in a torch right there. That torch is pretty much touching every single block in this area here. And even way over to here, that torch is preventing mobs from spawning. So it can be quite effective. So in a flat area like this, just by placing down 4 torches, we removed about 1,450 spawning spaces for hostile mobs to be able to spawn in. Pretty crazy how large an area this is just with 4 torches. Now this isn't going to affect all mobs, such as like slime. They can spawn where there is lights. But if this is kept, this will help people spawn-proof areas much more easily in their survival world without having to spam so many light sources. Now for every positive, there is some negatives, such as my invention of a mob farm where mobs spawn right beside another portal with water in between, and then they are shoved into the portal and they are immediately removed from mob camp, making extremely fast mob farms. And it's a really cool farm that I showed over 6 years ago. A lot of people like this design of mine, but this would break with this change to light levels. As in my farm, I use low light levels to allow mobs to spawn, but it's not 0, as another portal puts off a lot of light. And we can reduce this using water, but we can't get it down to 0. Now in the past, I also did other weird mob farms like this one. Back before light could go in between slabs, spiders would be able to spawn in a completely dark area, but they still were able to shove between the gaps in the slabs and push directly into another portal, making very fast spider farms. But currently in the game, there's no real easy way to get nether portals beside an area that is completely dark. So it will be interesting to see how this change affects the game, how it will affect other mobs like blazes who can spawn in some light, as well as other unique hostile mobs. And we will be doing a lot more testing with this snapshot during our Wednesday snapshot testing stream. And in those streams, viewers are able to join me as we play around with the newest changes. So if you guys have any more questions about any changes, tell me down in the comments, and be sure to follow me there on Twitch so you don't miss out when I stream. I would like to thank all you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye bye!